when you win the morning, you win the day. You don't just win the day, you can crush the day. So, guys, welcome to another episode of Forged Not Fixed. I'm Tyson Demeray. And 2 weeks back, I had talked about principles. And one of those principles was the importance of winning the morning. So a lot of people reached out and asked for a little bit more detail on it. Now, again, I've talked about this in multiple podcasts, but some people join a little bit later. So for you who've heard this before, maybe this is a refresher, maybe to see if you've started to implement this, see how you're going, maybe do a little checklist. And for those who are fresh to our audience and are hearing this for the first time, I really hope this serves you well. I'm going to tell you guys specifically why that first hour matters more than any other hour in the day, and how to build a routine, a system, instead of just merely winging it and kind of going about it by the seat of your pants. And something that I feel a lot of people don't talk about is how in my opinion, how your morning is really about managing what's going on inside of you. Because I feel as men, we have an internal struggle that we're dealing with or we're avoiding. So this is going to help tie into that aspect as well. So it's really an overall emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, I guess, pillar focus here. Social, maybe not as much, but those 4 pillars are really going to get covered in this episode. So in our first segment, the first hour. So I want to tell you guys where this comes from. Now, this isn't actually something I learned in a book. This is something that I applied in prison. So in my cell is where I learned this, because in prison, the first hour, cell doors popped at 7 a.m. At 6 a.m., I was up, and that first hour allowed me to prepare myself for whatever may come my way during that day, because I couldn't control the walls, right? The noise, the inmates, correctional officer, parole officer, guy beside me. I couldn't control my sentence, right? I had a life sentence, so indeterminate, I could get it at 10 years, but it could have been a lot longer. So with all that outside of my control, the only thing I could really do was focus on, okay, well, what can I do within that first hour? So at 6 a.m., my alarm went off, and I had a routine that I slowly built over time and added a little bit more to and got better at, really honing it to help me prepare for the day ahead. So again, I built one. I got up before I had to. I made my space right. I moved my body. I read. I prayed. My head was on straight before the day could get to me. And I truly believe that hour was a big part of what kept me human while I was in a place that tries to strip you of your humanity. So here's what I learned. The morning isn't about necessarily getting more done. It's about figuring out who's in charge, right? So if the first thing you do is grab your phone in the morning, right, and you open it up and you start looking at maybe missed messages, missed calls, emails, news, you start scrolling, you've already handed over your day to this brick, this block, right? You've already lost it. And when you lose your morning, well, now you're going to try to spend your whole day catching up because you haven't had the chance, or you haven't taken the opportunity to really set things with intention. And if there's no intention, then there's really no ability to fulfill your role as a husband, as a father, as a boss, as whoever, whatever hat you have to wear that day. You don't have the opportunity to really wear it well because you haven't defined what your role is for that day. So this, in my opinion, is where that first hour really comes in. So I want to ask you guys a question. Why does the first hour, in your opinion, why do you think that first hour carries so much more weight than on any other hour of the day? Well, the answer to this is actually kind of simple, because your body is actually set up for it. So I'm going to go here to what I call a teaching note for you guys. And this is the cortisol awakening response. So this is some information I want to share with you guys. Now, this is something that I made up in my head. This is actually something from literature, but not something I knew when I was in my cell, but it actually backed a lot of what I was doing. And that's what's kind of cool. So your body gives you a built-in surge of energy in the first part of the morning. So researchers call it the cortisol awakening response. Now, in most healthy people, cortisol climbs sharply right after you wake, and it peaks roughly 30 to 45 minutes later. And it's an average rise of about 50%. So cortisol, now, I think it gets a bad rap, right? A lot of the time people are like, oh, that's stress. Yes, cortisol is a stress hormone. But in the morning, I want you to think of it as your get up and go. Okay. So the point is there's a really kind of a small window early in the day where your body is primed, right? It is ready to act. And you can either point that energy towards something with purpose, or you spend it on something that's not good, right? Something where you're just doom scrolling and reacting, right? I mean, there's energy given to that, and there's also energy given to the other one. So you got to ask yourself now, which one's going to be the most beneficial for you, right? So that's the answer, right? The first hour is not just another hour. It is the hour your body hands you energy on a silver platter. So the only question is whether you aim it or you let your phone aim it for you. Now, segment 2. I want you guys to, and I talked about this just a few minutes ago, to build a system. Don't wing it. Now, let's try to build you yours. So again, the biggest mistake men make is winging the morning. So you wake up, you decide in the moment what you're going to do. There's really no plan, and if you're not planned, again, then you're going to make most likely the wrong or an impulsive programmed decision. And a morning that you have to think about is a morning you lose. Because I mean, how many of us are great at thinking while we're waking up? I know that's something that, even though I'm a morning person, that's not something I want to do in the morning. I'd rather be going through my routine. So you want a system. You don't want a decision. So here's the order I use. And again, hopefully you guys have an opportunity to write this down or however you want, but this is something that you can maybe try for yourself, take parts of it, try it all out if you want. Again, I've been doing this for years, so I'm not asking you guys to do everything the way I do it, but this is what works for me. So Monday to Fridays, I'm usually up at about 3:45 a.m. No, I'm not asking you to get up that early, but I have to be up that early in order for me to be ready for my 6 a.m. client. That is my earliest client in the day. So I want to make sure that I'm ready. And because I'm a coach, because I'm a trainer and mentor, I want to make sure that mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, I'm in a good place when I'm meeting my clients. So as soon as I wake up, roll out of bed, do my business in the washroom, go downstairs, I hydrate, drink some water, and I am out the door with my dog. And it can be cold outside, it can be nice outside. I mean, if it's a torrential downpour, I will find another thing to do in the morning, but traditionally my movement is my walk. But if it is pouring, then I do mobility in my spare bedroom. So just things to open up, some stretching, some breathing. I'll do that for the first 20 to 30 minutes. But otherwise, I'm outside, 30-minute walk, 3 kilometers. And during that time, first thing is gratitude. While I'm walking, I have a nice park right behind my house. Fortunately, at that time of the morning or that time of the day, there's no one out. So I actually talk out loud. I vocalize what I'm grateful for. And I go through a whole list of things. But I want you guys just to pick 3 things that you are grateful for. And why are you grateful for those things? Okay. Right after that, I then start to set what my intention is for the day. So who do I need to show up as? So for me, and again, because I'm a man of faith, I always want to make sure that I am acting in a way that aligns with my beliefs and to act in an honorable way. And this allows me then to do arguably kind of what the Bible says, which is treat your neighbor as you'd like to be treated. With that, I also make sure that I am lining up with how I need to be as a husband for my wife and how I need to show up for my clients, right? I think of which clients do I have? My schedule is always the same, so it's not too hard. And I think of, okay, so who do I need to be for each client? What kind of a coach or mentor do I need to show up as? And for that, of course, I think one thing that apply in almost any job is when someone comes to you, so it could be an employee, you want to listen to understand rather than to listen to reply. And I repeat that in my head every day that I want to continue to work on listening and hearing what my clients are sharing with me and to be empathetic and understanding. And I think as guys, that's not something that's built into us. So it's really important that we are trying to take that in with an open mind and open heart. I finish my walk. I usually try to focus on some other things that are positive, goals that I have, short term, long term goals that I'm working towards, and just really try to align fundamentally with who I am today and who I'm continuing to want to be as time goes on, right? Who do I want to be in 5 years? Who do I want to be in 10 years? And really focus on making sure that every day is lining up towards becoming that person down the road. So once I get back home, I feed Jax, our dog, and I start my breakfast. I prepare my tea. I get that ready. It's about 20 minutes. I sit down and I turn on my light. So I have one of those light therapy lamps that sits right on my table. I turn that on, get some of that, I guess you could say fake sunlight, but the sun's not up that early. So I want light in my eyes, off to the side a little bit, not directly. So off to the side. While I'm eating, I'm usually listening to either a book from Headway or I'm listening to a podcast. I wake up my wife. She comes down. Coffee's ready. We start our day because she's my first client. She has caffeine a little bit earlier than I would recommend most people. That's because she's working out first thing. So I don't have my first serving of coffee until about 60 to 90 minutes after I wake up. And it's at that time where I finally open up my phone. So I make sure I don't do anything with my phone until it's 60 minutes after. So again, if it is open to listen to Headway, I'm not checking my messages. I'm not checking anything. I've already got a book that I've pre-selected the night before. So I can literally open up just the Headway app, press play, and then put it aside and listen to it while I'm eating my breakfast and stuff like that. So that's kind of my morning. That sets me up. I feel good after. My wife is up and now I'm showing up well for her because I've taken care of myself. And it's so important that having that morning routine, you have to understand that if you do have a spouse, if you do have kids, if you have a business like myself and you have people you're responsible for, you want to make sure that you're in your best form, that you're not just walking out the door, again, flying by the seat of your pants, in an aggravated state, in a rush state, because you slept in too much, you didn't give yourself enough time to get right, and then you don't show up right? So that's my order. So I really hope some of you might already be doing this. And again, I habit stack. So you'll notice that a lot of those things are either done together or back to back. And I think combining habits or stacking them is what really helps with winning the morning. So again, it's hydrate, walk. While I'm walking, it's gratitude and alignment. When I get home, it's fueling for the day with light therapy. So that's combined as well. And then I'm basically then starting my day and a little bit of learning, like I said, too, learning through either podcasts or Headway or anything like that. So that's my morning routine. That is my first hour. That's how I win it. It's a little bit different than when I was in my cell. Obviously, I didn't have a cell phone in prison, and I didn't have my breakfast until I actually got out of my cell. But still very similar when it came to how I prepared my spirit, my emotions, and my mental state for the day. So I want you guys though to understand, even though I have a lot of things in there, for you that might be too much, and that's okay. So I want you to keep it simple. All right. You don't need a 2 hour routine. Okay. Mine might be an hour, but that's what I like. Yours could be 20 minutes, right? 20 minutes of something intentional is better than 0 minutes of anything. And I don't think many of you are giving yourself an adequate amount of time to prepare yourself for the day ahead. And that's why you're running hot. That's why you're running with your stress so high. And it just, again, it puts you in a really unproductive state. So I make sure that my mind is running me, that I'm in control of me, that the world isn't controlling me, and that my phone isn't controlling me. And that one rule with no phone for the first hour, I'm telling you right now, that changes more things. That one thing changes more things than anything else I can give you in this podcast. If you can do just one thing, remove the phone. And I promise you, then you're most likely going to find that 20 minutes that you're wasting on this damn thing. Okay. Once upon a time, we didn't have those, but now we're so dependent on it. So now you might be asking, well, Tyson, why a system, right? I talk about a system, but why a system? Why not just have a strong morning when I feel like it, right? Well, here's the why. The willpower that you're counting on at 6 in the morning. Okay, cool. That's the same willpower you're going to need the next day and the day after and the week after. The thing is with willpower, it doesn't refill on command, right? It's not like you can go to the gas station and be like, yeah, can you top me up with some willpower, please? No, it doesn't work like that. So the issue here becomes something called decision fatigue and the habit loop. So this is again another teaching note that I've put aside for you guys that I want to touch on. So a psychologist did some work on ego depletion, right? His name was Roy, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name as I'm going to butcher it. But he did some work that describes ego depletion. So self-control draws on a limited resource, and the more decisions you burn through, the worse your choices get later. Yeah, this sounds familiar. Now, that rundown is what people call decision fatigue. So decision fatigued people plan less and they avoid more. So the fix is to stop deciding, right? You want to make your morning routine automatic. Now, Charles Duhigg, I believe that's how you say it, was drawing on the habit science. So what you want here is something called a habit loop. So you want to have a cue, a routine, and reward. So a fixed cue, like your feet hitting the floor, that kicks off the same routine every day. So for me, yeah, I have my feet hit the floor. I'm in the bathroom. I'm out of the bathroom. My clothes are laid out on the banister. I already know what I'm wearing. So I don't even have to think about it. Just throw my boxers, my shorts, my jogging pants, whatever it is, t-shirt, hoodie, downstairs. Guess what? My water bottle, it's already filled up. Drink my water, out the door. That's it. No real thinking, right? It's a cue, and it's just this routine I go through. So why this is so important, and this is backed by Wendy Wood, found that 43% of what we do every day runs on habit, not on choice. So think of the system not as rigidity, but it's actual freedom, because you spend zero willpower on the morning. So you have it for everything else during the day that might actually require willpower. Maybe a task you don't really want to do, something that requires a bit more willpower. So if your morning is running on an automatic routine on a system, well, then again, you're just setting yourself up for a better chance at not surviving, but actually thriving later on in the day, maybe when life tries to do what it does, right? Lifes. So yeah, you want to be prepared for that. So that is why a system beats motivation every single time. Now, motivation, it shows up some mornings, right? Some people have some days, and I'm one of those people. Some mornings I'm really motivated to get certain things done. I'm like ready to conquer the day. And other mornings, well, not so much. But you know what? I don't rely on motivation or willpower or even discipline or habit to do what I do. It's my identity. And talk about this later on another podcast. I've talked about this in other podcasts, but identity is fundamentally the most important thing anyone can have in their life. So a system shows up every morning, whether you feel like it or not. So you just have to build it once, get it in place, and then it carries you instead of you having to carry it. So segment 3, managing what's inside. So again, this is the part that I find doesn't get talked about enough. So now the part most men skip, and it is, I think, arguably the most important part, is winning your morning is really about managing what's going on inside of you. And as men, I truly believe this is something we are not taught to do. Okay, this is something we don't learn about in school. And a lot of the time, our fathers, I didn't have one growing up, but My grandfather struggled with this. He was kind of the male role model, male figure I had in my life. We're not taught to do that. We're taught to push it down, right? Power through, suck it up, just handle it, right? And I mean, sure, it works right up until it doesn't work anymore, until something in us breaks. Now, I'm going to say this as plainly as I can. If we don't learn to manage our demons are going to manage us. And eventually, those demons, they're going to be what raise our children. They're going to be what shows up at home with our spouse and with our children. And that's not a line to scare you guys. That is just the truth. Because whatever you don't deal with in yourself, it doesn't just magically disappear, right? Think about the elephant in the room. How many people have an elephant in the room? Something they haven't addressed. Oh, we can just move it to the other part of the room. Yeah, but the elephant's still there. The elephant's always there. You can move the elephant around the room all you want. You can even try to move him outside of the house. The elephant is still there. And it's going to come out in some way, shape, or form on the people you love, and especially on your children. And then you hand that down to them, right? This is what intergenerational trauma, this is what intergenerational abuse and problems are from. It's from things that our grandfather didn't handle and he passed on to our father. And our father couldn't handle it, so he passed it on to us. So if we don't address it, if we don't open up our damn eyes, get our heads out of our proverbial you know what, then we are going to pass it down to the next generation, and they're going to pass it down to the next generation. And I'm sick and tired of seeing that, because the majority of the men that I was incarcerated with, myself included, right, we were all dealing with things that had been passed down, right? Learned behaviors, conditioning that had shown up in our lives, passed down by our fathers, that we just don't want to address, that we don't want to acknowledge. Now, the mornings, well, this is where you do that work before it builds out. So when I sit in the quiet, when I'm walking, right, when I'm thinking of my day, when I'm thinking what's coming up, I mean, I'm aligning with who I am. But when I was sitting in my cell, that's where I did so much of that work. That first hour, I really needed to make sure that my emotions, because of my anger, my impulse control back then, I really needed to make sure that in the quiet, naming what I'm grateful for, being honest with myself for a few minutes, I was able to then finally take some pressure down in an environment that is a pressure cooker in all intents and purposes, right? Prison has a lot of pressure, a lot of violence. It's a place that's very stressful. Okay. I'm sure most of you can figure that out. So if I could bring that pressure down in myself, prepare myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, well, now I had a better chance at running the day, taking care of the day, because I took care of myself. That's not soft, right? That work, that is the work that most people are avoiding to do. That is, if you start doing this, that is a man taking responsibility for what is inside, so it doesn't run your house, right? So acknowledge what you're struggling with. Stop avoiding, stop running from it. Take some time to sit in discomfort. Do it sober. That's why the morning's so important. There's not a lot of people that are popping a beer or smoking a joint. Well, some people do. I did. First thing in the morning. When you're sober, when you actually have some energy still, focus on what's ahead. Focus on what you're running from, what you're struggling with. Start addressing it, please. So a man who wins his mornings, he's not just more productive. You become more steady, more patient. You're going to become harder to knock off center, right? Because you met yourself first. So the world around you, it doesn't get to set the terms, because you set the terms. And here's something that you might not expect. the two simplest things in that routine, getting some light and moving your body, it's not just about energy. They're actually some of the strongest tools you have for what is underneath. So, again, I'm going to go into another teaching note here. So, light and movement on mood. So, getting daylight in your eyes early. So, ideally within the first hour of waking and outdoor rather than through a window. So, for me, I do the light therapy, right? That helps set your internal clock and it lifts mood and alertness for the day. So, that light hitting your eyes signals the brain to raise serotonin. It's a chemistry tied to steadier mood. Roughly 10 to 30 minutes in is the window people point to, what the studies point to. So for me, it's about 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. I have that light therapy going on every single morning. And I'm telling you, since I started that intentional light therapy, huge difference, big impact. I can tell it works. It's funny too, because my dog will actually sit beside me so that the light is in his eyes. So I'm telling you, this is something about an animal. If an animal's doing it, you know it must be working because instinctually they know just certain things they need to do. And because he goes on my clock, I guess he must realize I need sunlight too, Dad. So I always find it funny. He never misses his morning light when he's sitting beside me. And he could be at the other side of the room, but no, he's on, not on this side of me. The light's always on my right. So he sits on the right so that the light gets on him better. Now, as regards for movement, that's light. So movement does the same job, but from another angle. So regular aerobic exercise, it raises something now BDNF, a protein that supports the brain regions involved in mood and emotion. So low BDNF and a smaller hippocampus shows up in depression. And exercise is one of the few things that reliably pushes BDNF the other way. So you don't need necessarily a workout. Workout's great, but maybe you're not there yet, or maybe that's not when you work out, but that's why a walk counts. That's why I think I always feel so much better after a walk in the morning. Because when I don't get my walk in, movement feels good for me. I like doing it. I need to do something. But I find that intentional walk, because I walk pretty fast, really just makes me feel so much better when I'm able to do it. So this is a science under what you already feel, right? Light plus movement, first thing, is not just waking the body. It's actually steadying the man that we need to be for the day. So when I tell you guys to step into the light and move your body for the first hour, I'm not just trying to wake you up. I'm trying to hand you guys two of the simplest ways there are to manage what is going on inside of you. And most men, they walk right past them every single morning. So guys, your homework for the week. So this is this week's challenge. So what I want you to do is win the morning for 7 days straight. So 1, decide tonight what your first hour looks like. Keep it short and sweet. I don't want anything too complex. So water, move, a few minutes of quiet, 3 things you're grateful for, whatever. Pick 1 or 2 things that you think will matter most to you or have the biggest impact, because that's the most important thing. It's not what I do. It's what that I've shared with you today. What do you think would resonate or would help you the most? 2, no phone. No phone, at least for the first hour. None. Put it in another room overnight. I don't care. I want you to put it away from you though, so you're not relying on willpower, because that is not great at 6 a.m. And 3, do the exact same thing. So whatever you choose to do. So a couple of things in the morning. So repeat those for 7 days and no phone. So it stops being a decision and it starts being who you are, right? Do it so it becomes automatic. Build a system. So 7 days, same routine. Phone stays out of it. Win the first hour for yourself before you hand your attention over to everyone else. So the day is won or lost before most men are even awake. You don't need more hours, guys. We only get 24 hours. You don't need more. You need to just take the first one back and use it on purpose. Use it intentionally. Run your morning and you run your day. Hand it away and the day is going to run you. And then the week and then the years. So stop the rat race. Start tomorrow, 1 hour, yours alone. Now share this with one man who is always behind, always reacting, always a step late on his own life. Tell him it starts in the morning. So win the first hour, guys, and you decide who you are before anyone else or anything else gets a vote. This is Forged, Not Fixed. I am Tyson Demery. We will see you guys next week.